Who's your daddy? Danielle Smith is, apparently. She just took some reporters to the woodshed and obviously as well spoke very not so highly of the Eastern ministers here in Canada. She broke down on the go, Zoom, camera right here with the earbuds in, wires dangling, saying, it's not looking good with the tariffs, but we had a constructive conversation with Trump, and it looks like, where we're at is it's all liberals' fault. That's essentially what she was saying. It's fun to have. Ray had Reg in studio here with me. What did you make of this interview?
So the first thing I want to say is that Danielle Smith looks like a leader. Like she may look a little rough on this video, but she's looking rough because she's putting the work in. She's not out there, doing whatever the Liberal Party is currently doing right now to make themselves look important. And she is actually getting down on the ground, meeting Trump where he's at, and trying to advocate for Canada. And I think that was the big thing that I really appreciated. There was reporters that were basically asking, are you just out there for Alberta's interests? And she's like, no, I'm here for the interests of all of Canada. And she's like, and because Alberta provides such a significant portion of the exports to the States, of course, I'm going to go down and be a voice when there's clearly no voice coming from Ottawa right now. And she's like, this is serious, and we need leadership on this. She very rightfully said, I've been advocating for an election because we need an election. We need leadership, and we don't have it right now. I really appreciated that she was the leadership that went down there, because she seems like the only rational voice we have right now in Canadian government.
Absolutely. And I think that was the one thing is you talked about, the one thing I thought was really interesting that she pointed out was the fact that Trump is doing what Trump does. He is a businessman. He is setting the narrative of how this is going down. Canada's screwing us. Get your crap together. This, that, the other. Then Danielle Smith on this call said, nah, that's not exactly the facts of the case. And that's why I went down to make our case. Like the actual economic environment is very different than what he's perceiving it to be. And that's what she had to say about the trade relationship between the U.S. and Canada.
The biggest irritant to the United States are trade deficits, which they believe they have. I don't actually believe they have a trade deficit. When you take out energy, we actually buy more goods and services from the U.S. than they buy from us. I'm happy to make this National Bank report available to anyone who wants it. That shows we actually have $58 billion in a trade deficit with the Americans when you take energy out. And that's why I wanted to have the assurance that the Americans are interested in getting more of our oil and gas, because I think oil and gas is going to be key to being able to get a breakthrough once tariffs do come in getting them off. I think if we maintain a strong partnership on energy, we make the case about how much the Americans benefit from that energy relationship. We demonstrate that we are a good trade partner, that we buy more goods and services from America than any other nation, and that we do buy more goods and services when you take energy out. I think we can make that case, but I feel like from what I have seen that it's not my decision to make on tariffs, but we do need to be preparing ourselves for the fact that they're likely to come in on January 20th.
So she makes it very loud and clear there. She's like, the narrative that's being put out there isn't necessarily the case. And that's why I want to have a conversation. And this is the type of leadership, Reg, you said, is what we've needed. Someone to actually go and talk some sense and talk dollars to a guy who loves business and loves money. But obviously we've just been having people crying in Ottawa these days.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that we've mentioned this on the show before, Trudeau doing his cry tour around America. You've got Jagmeet Singh out there being like, we need to stick it to them. And he's trying to be super strong and blah, 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 blah. And we look like a bunch of idiots. We look like a bunch of uncoordinated idiots. And this is true leadership actually coming out, providing solutions too. Later on in the interview, she actually describes the fact that we may need to consider, offering the ability to buy more products from the States, so that if we look at what are we currently importing from, say, China, say India, all of the South Asian side of the world, what are the things that are there that could be comparable in price in Canada and in the US that we could then create new trade agreements around? She talks about the fact that they want to build data centers in Alberta, and they want to actually increase their energy capacity. She talked about refining, all these different things. And she said those things are going to need products. They're going to need very specialized components. And why don't we look to the states for that instead and offer that up as a new way of moving forward in a new trade agreement? And so these are things that Trump can then take back to the American people and say, we won Canada. They're going to buy more of our crap. It's going to be more American jobs. I'm not doing the accent for the whole thing, but you know what I mean? Like this is something he can go back to the people and promote as a win that, you know, he pushed on Canada a little bit and then they offered up something in return that doesn't hurt us. Mm-hmm. And this is what Danielle is trying to do. This is what Premier Smith is actively looking for. She's looking for those mutual wins that are going to further strengthen both countries. And the rest of them are not doing that. And it's so annoying.
Because they don't really know how to do it. They're not really great in the private sector before being politicians, and they're not really great at being politicians ever. And so when you have someone who's a strong leader, a strong individual, who's a strong personality to deal with, they buckle because they don't know how to deal with that. They barely know how to deal with Pierre Poilievre in the House. Are you going to deal with Donald Trump, who doesn't bring really a whole political background to him, aside from the 4 years he was serving, 2016 to 2020? He's going to tear you up. He's a man who grew up in front of our very eyes as the man on The Apprentice, telling people they're fired. And you're going to say you're just going to act tough to him? Get real. And so this is the conversation you and I have been having, is how do you get through to a guy like Trump? You don't try to be bluster, like as they've been saying in the House constantly. You gotta punch a bully in the nose. That's how you gain his respect. And it's like, I hear you, but right now, he has legitimate reasons to be upset with us, and you need to go to him with a deal. It's fairly simple, but they just don't seem to get that. But Danielle does.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like she's coming in as like soft power and like just coming in with like this like grace about her, where she's like, you know what? I hear you. I'm coming to listen. I'm not agreeing with you. Like, Canada's not for sale. We are a sovereign nation and we're a proud sovereign nation. However, here are the facts and I'm willing to work with you. So let's sit down and make a deal. And let's plan out this future where you feel good, we feel good. And that's the art of negotiation. That's how country to country should work.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm pretty excited about, seeing what she's been bringing to the table and what we've been lacking in our federal leadership at this point, which has been disappointing.
Yeah, well, she calls it out too when she specifically says what's irritating to Alberta is the fact that you've got these Eastern ministers, you know, claiming that they're going to do all these things that affect Alberta and affect the rest of Canada when they couldn't put Canada first back when they had the opportunity to. And so it's really fun actually listening to her, like kind of almost roast them a little bit. You could tell she's very frustrated about it because even the way her whole demeanor changes on it it's interesting. Let's watch it here.
And I would hope that would continue to be the case. Here's the thing I find irritating about Eastern politicians making that argument. The reason I find it irritating is because we could have had Energy East, which would have expanded our ability to support our friends in Eastern Canada and also been an export market off the East Coast. We could have had Northern Gateway, which would have expanded and supported export markets in a more substantial way off the West Coast. And Eastern politicians advocated against those things. And so we went to work on expanding our access to the United States with additional egress, with twinning, with looping. We did that because the rest of the country wasn't interested in having that conversation. So to now make the argument that that's a point of leverage is going to be very, very irritating, not only to me, but also to my fellow Albertans. If they want to start the conversation by saying, gosh, maybe we should have had Energy East and Northern Gateway, let's restart that so that we're not so dependent on one customer, I am more than happy to have that conversation. And
so one of the key things to remember here too is the fact that she also mentioned earlier on in this interview where she said, I think that these politicians need to look at a map and actually look at how integrated the systems are, because you voted against being sovereign with a pipeline that goes from Alberta to the East Coast and creating new markets and actually securing up our own oil and natural gas to our own provinces. Because she points at the fact that if we were to stop actually sending oil, sending natural gas into the States, that pipeline that runs from Alberta goes right through Michigan. So what that means is that you would plunge all of Ontario and all of Quebec into energy poverty because they wouldn't have natural gas to heat their homes. They wouldn't have natural gas to run their electricity generating stations. They wouldn't have natural gas to even cook their meals because they cook with natural gas in Ontario and Quebec. So like, it's just so beyond stupid. Just some of these things that they're actually even saying, that she's saying, why are you putting this out there? It doesn't make sense. Here's an actual solution that we could do to actually open ourselves up to greater markets, secure our energy in our own country, and all at the same time, deal with whatever's happening with Trump. It's just, I hate being like, it's common sense. It is common sense.
I mean, she's just dropping truth bombs in all this interview, just giving more of a reality of how incompetent and moronic our federal leadership is. And she just keeps highlighting just by simple things she brings up here. And people, I heard here in the comments, well, this was always the plan around. Shut up for now. Yeah, I hear you. Shut up. The reality is these people don't know what they're talking about in terms of the federal leaders. I have no idea what they've been doing. And they've put us in this position. And they just were not expecting Trump to be the one who reaped the benefits of this position they put Canada in. Could have created pipelines through to the east, send our energy to Europe. Could have sent pipelines through the west, sent our energy over to Asia. Could have gone north as well. And there are so many situations. Obviously, the Keystone Pipeline, that was out of our doing. We were ready to go. Joe Biden, first day, nixed it. So that really wasn't on us. But the reality is we could have been energy dependent on our own and energy independent and not been dependent on this scenario that we're currently witnessing. And obviously, Danielle Smith is very irritated like the rest of us.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things to mention too is the fact that she says we send $100 billion worth of product down to the States that they then add value to through refining and other processing that then turns into $300 billion worth of value that they then sell not only to themselves, but to other exports. And like, this is what Poilievre has been saying. Like, why are we not doing that ourselves? Why are we not taking $100 billion worth of product and turning it into $300 billion worth of product? Like that wealth could be Canada's.
And this is the issue. These conversations have been happening for well over 20 years at this point. We've all had these conversations of why do we keep sending our gas, our oil to the US to be refined for them to sell back to us at a premium. And finally, it took someone like Trump to finally get the conversation really going at a federal level here. It was like, nah, maybe we should start building and refining our own oil.
But it's not just oil. It's every industry.
Yeah, you're right.
It's timber. It's all the minerals that we mine. It's any of the products that we buy that are manufactured where we send the raw materials out and then buy the manufactured product back for more money. Like, these are the kind of things that when you read some of the writings that Pierre Poilievre has put out there, this is kind of what he's talking about, like the whole like quote unquote bring it home thing that he's been running with. It's actually right. Like, we do need to actually start looking at these different industries that Canada has so that we can pull ourselves out of our economic and our financial poverty that we've gotten into by pushing all of this outside of our borders in the name of globalization and whatever WEF mandate was, bestowed upon him by the glorious Charles Schwab. So I think that what we have to do is actually assess all this, like Danielle is doing with energy, and apply that to everything. And unfortunately, right now, it's a little too late for us to kind of get behind that right now. But
Pipelines right now.
but we can work on that with the new government change. And she's been saying we're advocating for a change in government because we don't know who's going to be the person who's going to advocate on our behalf to the States. My hope is that it's her. Yeah, honestly, I know that's not her jurisdiction, but honestly, my God, it's kind of scary. And she kind of even mentions she's not even sure who's going to be the person.
Yeah, when the premiers are unsure of what the federal government's doing when it comes to stuff that's going to impact their industry, that is nerve wracking. And the one small thing I'll correct you on there, it was Klaus Schwab, not Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab's the financial guy.
Yeah.
But hey, they're all the same team, right? Yeah, I don't know. But that was the interesting thing that I did find. That is the one thing I like that she pointed out in this interview as well, is when she mentioned the trade surplus that the States actually benefits from us, that she said that opened up Trump's eyes. He wasn't aware of that, and it got him thinking. Like that's the intel that we're looking for. That's what we want to see. And the last thing, as he said, who is going to be negotiating? We don't know. No one knows. And she makes sure to add some fuel to the fire here, asking that question here with CBC.
As well, whoever emerges as the principal voice on trade at the moment, it seems to be Jolie, but it has in the past been Dominic, and so I'm still a little unclear on who is going to be the voice at the table. I hope to get some clarity on that this week, but I think we need to hash this out.
Who's it going to be? And I feel like this was Danielle Smith's way of saying, get Jolie out of there. Like, give us something who's like half decent at this. You know, the better option of the crappy options we have.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately right now, like the portfolio belongs to Jolie. It like that's how they've set it up right now. And I know that, you know, Trudeau's last offer to Freeland when that was all going down was that, you know, she could hold that portfolio, and she said, nah, screw that. So, but it is Danielle basically saying like Jolie doesn't have this. Should Dominic have it? He's had it in the past. Maybe. So
there's a thought.
Yeah, we'll find out on the 15th, because that's when the premier or the premiers and the prime minister and his cabinet all meet to discuss what they're going to do.
Yeah. And so we'll be keeping an eye on that, as will all of us. I'm sure you will too. We'll be here updating you. We love you. We're out. Peace.